Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Rooted Self Love Podcast. I'm your host, Nora. I'm a self love coach and hypnotherapy practitioner. I mainly work with people on the relationship patterns in their life. So, I really strongly believe that the relationships in your life are always a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. And the relationship that you have with yourself is very often, and for the most part, rooted in the relationships that you had growing up from the ages 0 to 8 or 0 latest to 25 actually, but those 8 years are very important. And today I want to speak to you in this podcast about setting goals for 2026, and I want to help you make it your best year yet. And I believe when I say the best year yet, I don't mean those outer metrics of what you think is going to make you feel worthy or what you feel like is going to make you feel lovable, but what is actually going to truly make you happy at your truest essence, as your soul essence. So to give you some examples of goals that I feel like are oftentimes very focused on how we want to be seen is certain income goals, right? If you say, I want to make 100K, why is it exactly 100K? What is it going to give you? Is it the freedom that it's going to give you? Is it the confidence that it's going to give you, etc.? So we're going to basically go from the back, and we're not going to set goals that you're just making up in your mind that you've heard from other people, but we're going to go into goals that truly come from your heart and from your body and from your emotions. So also a little disclaimer that I want to make: as much as I love goal setting and I think it's such a potent thing to do, I really I was just going through the goals that I set a couple of weeks ago before kind of gathering what I want to speak about in the podcast, and I'm like, oops, okay, I already checked most of those just by setting the intention and making the space to even feel out, let's just say feel out of what I want to do and where I want to go. And that's why I'm going to do this very emotion focused. But I also want to make the disclaimer that there are certain things in our lives that are out of our control, and that is totally fine. And I actually think that's really healthy to know, not to go into victim mode of all things are happening to me and I don't have any impact on them, but of being like, this is my range of impact, and there's always this little part where I don't have impact on, where the universe just switches things up, sometimes in a beautiful upward spiral and sometimes in a not so beautiful, in the moment, downward spiral. But knowing that in the end it's always for our highest intention, right? And when I think of myself or my clients, the hardest situations they've gone through are in hindsight always the ones that they really needed to, that actually double speeded them towards their authentic goals, if that makes sense. So just to give you an example of a really tough breakup, if you're going through a really tough breakup, or if you've gone through a really tough breakup and maybe someone you thought you really loved leaves you, and through that breakup all these shadows are highlighted, all the ways that you don't love yourself actually truly, all the ways they didn't love you is a reflection of the way you couldn't love yourself ultimately. Or maybe there are certain dependencies highlighted, all these things that maybe you would have found out over years and years, if at all, if that breakup didn't happen. But through the breakup you go through this rock bottom that ultimately up levels you like crazy. Yeah, but that's not what we're focusing on today. Today we're focusing on those soft inner shifts of alignment and of goal setting and of where is our body telling us where we want to go. And I think so many of us aren't even aware of the things that we actually truly desire, or the things that actually feel uncomfortable in our lives. Like, I'm just thinking of a person that is doing their 9 to 5 that they just started right after uni because it just made sense, and yeah, they're getting a bit of a pay rise every couple of years, nothing crazy. But all in all, they just don't really feel lit up in their life. They just everything just feels a bit gray because they're just doing what is expected of them. They don't really tap into their body. Oftentimes that person doesn't even know how it feels in their body to be connected to to life. Everything's really in the mind and not a lot in the body. And don't get me wrong, I've been there as well, and I still go through phases, but I always try to feel back into my body and being like, okay, what is it that I need right now? And what is it that my body is really telling me? For example, I had this the other day where I was having like a day where I just felt like a bit like, yeah, I don't know if I would call it dissociated, but it's still some form of dissociation for sure. And I was thinking, what is it that feels off? What is it? Or actually, I wasn't asking myself, what is it that feels off? I was like, maybe I'm going to watch some TV, listen to an audiobook, just distract myself. And instead, I went into my room, into this office that's also our TV room. And I just sat down, turned on a candle, and I pulled some tarot cards to just like connect to what's going on with me and to just make space for what's inside of me. And I realized really quickly that I had been feeling disconnected to my partner. So if you haven't listened to this podcast before, we have a 15-month-old son. We just got married 2 months ago, I think. And when you're parents, it's just sometimes tough to connect with each other, or it's easily overlooked. And this is what this episode is about, these simple shifts that you can make to get the things that you want in your life, but that you usually don't because you're not connected with yourself enough to even know what's wrong. To make it short, I connected with myself and I was like, okay, I miss being courted by my husband. I miss being... I miss that one-on-one connection of feeling seen, not just as a mother and partner and life partner, but also as a lover, as a woman that he chooses every day. And after I found that out for myself, I went to him and we had a really wonderful conversation, and things have shifted so much since then. And I'm not saying that anything you can switch like this. Maybe there's deeper things going on. I would consider us a relationship that talks and communicates openly about these things a lot of the time, which makes it easier to make these shifts quicker. But still, the first step is connecting with your body and feeling what's active and what doesn't feel aligned, and then addressing that in your life. And going back to what you don't have impact on, I don't have impact on how my husband is going to react to that and how my husband is going to take that information that I give him, those feelings that I share with him, into the long run. But I have impact on what I'm going to do with that, and I have impact on how I want to live a relationship for the next 10, 20 years. And I can make my conclusions depending on how life presents to me, how my relationship presents to me. And I think that is what is true self-love, is loving yourself so much that you won't expect or accept anything less from the people in your life. So to help you with this, I'm going to just guide you through this really quickly. I was originally going to help you go through every single one of your goals or things that are unaligned, but you can do that for yourself. I'm just going to help you with one, and you can either rewatch this video or you can just pause and do multiple ones. I wouldn't focus on more than maybe 2 or 3 at a time, because I think otherwise it's a bit overwhelming. It's a bit like when we start new habits and we just try to do 10 at the same time. We're probably not going to stick with any of them. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to reflect on your life and write down everything that currently feels unaligned. And I'm trying to make this less spiritually fluffy. So anything that bothers you in your life, anything that doesn't make you feel uplifted or opens your heart, but closes your heart and makes you feel contracted. So you can even close your eyes for a moment and just feel into your life and really just give yourself that moment, that opportunity of just being open to anything that bothers you in your life. When in your life are you ever able to just complain about whatever is bothering you, right? And for me, when I did this exercise a couple of months ago, I was like, I don't feel a lot of energy. I feel oftentimes like I have low energy. I felt really unaccomplished with my work. I felt a bit unregulated, all these things. You can write down things like, I feel lonely because I don't have a community. I feel lonely because I don't have a partner. I feel like I can't afford the things that I want to afford in life. There's this beautiful 300-pound dress and I can't buy it, but I really want it. Anything, really. Just write down anything that bothers you in your life right now that you could complain about. Maybe it's a relationship with your mother that is just stressing you out a lot of the time and making you making you uncomfortable. Okay, and after you've written that down, you will turn those into goals. So, for example, I'm just going to go backwards with the situation with your mom. Okay, so I would probably write down something like, I want to feel at ease when I'm in contact with my mom. Or the energy one, I want to feel energized throughout the day. I want to have stable energy throughout the entire day. The situation with my husband, I want to feel truly in love. I don't want to just be this couple that loves each other in many areas of life. I want to feel in love. So those are the goals that you can set next. Then the next one is rating those goals from 1 to 10. So you're going to write down from 1 to 10. 10 is fully reached and 1 is not reached at all. So, for example, with the energy one, when I first did it, let me see here, I have stable energy. I had like a 2 to 3, so really, really low. And I feel like now, after making the changes, after doing this exercise, I feel like I'm at like a 6 to 8. Depending on the day, maybe 7 to 8, if I do the things that I know are going to help me with my stable energy. Or with the situation with my husband, I think I was probably feeling that day when I was going into myself, I was probably feeling at like a 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and now I feel like at a 6 to 7 just by making the changes. And I think I love working with those numbers because it's just a great way of really checking in and having that just making it tangible where you are on your growth journey. Okay, so do that. Rate your goals that you just set from 1 to 10. 1 is not reached at all, 10 is super reached. And then the next exercise is write down how your life would look like, or brainstorm. You can say it out loud, you can say it to a partner, friend, family. Say out loud, write down whatever, all the ways how your life would look and feel different if you had reached that goal. So for me, and it's actually giving me motivation again for myself with the whole energy thing. So for me, if I had stable energy throughout my day, I would feel energized to work in the afternoon and do creative things in the afternoon. I would feel like I want to get up and go out to the playground with my child instead of just sitting at home in front of the chimney, which also is nice sometimes, but not part of the goal. I would have a very clear mind. So for me, I know already, for me, the low energy has a lot to do with blood sugar levels. So when I just have full-on carbs first thing in the morning or something sweet like pancakes, I know my head just goes really heavy throughout the rest of the day. And the opposite would be feeling light. And then to give the examples with my partner, I would feel romantically connected with Nico most of the time. I would want to kiss him throughout the day. I would want to touch him throughout the day. I would feel like I want to spend time with him when our son is asleep, right? That's all part of the feeling in love thing, and not just loving the other person and just doing life together. At least that's the goal that I have for my relationship. So you write all these things down, how it would look like when you're 10 out of 10 reached your goal. And then the next part is you write down every step you can think of you can do to achieve your goal. And this is a really fun part because this is where it comes into your action steps, and that's not where it's just, I don't feel so loved by my husband right now, or I feel so tired, my body is just not the way it's supposed to be, or oh, poor me, the relationship with my mother is so hard. This is where you write down all the ways how you can have impact on changing those things in your life. So for me, because one of them was at the time, I want to feel accomplished in my work. And I wrote down, I commit to posting 1 podcast episode per week for the next year. And this is, by the way, what I'm doing. This will 100% happen. I'm so committed to this. But I also want to say that it took me a year to get into this. Like, I started doing podcasts a year ago and I ended up just posting 1 a month. Don't want to make excuses, but I did have a newborn at home. And I feel now like I can really do this. And part of that, by the way, was also having a routine. I don't know if I wrote this down. I think those were changes that I made even before writing this down. But part of it was having a work routine, having fixed work hours, even if I'm self-employed, not just having fixed work hours for when I'm going to see my clients, but having fixed work hours for all the other back-end stuff. Then I literally wrote down, I want to deprioritize client work, only 2 to 3 client sessions per week, and instead follow my creativity and just feel like I can output and be accomplished in growing my business and not just the day-to-day work. So figuring out new ways of making money, growing this business, helping other people, helping more people. Then I wrote down networking in my space, so going to day retreats, finding different yoga studios around the area that I just moved to, going to toddler groups and all that stuff. One of the things to feel accomplished in my work this year is just committing to my excitement. And then giving you examples of continuously being active in my body. I wrote down working out twice a week, going to the sauna minimum once a week, doing strength exercise, and finding baby-friendly options like going on walks with my child. I also, which is something that I didn't write down at the time, is just changing my diet, and not in the way to like stay skinny or whatever. It's really just to feel like, okay, how can I help my blood sugar levels? High protein diet, move body regularly, do hot, cold, whatever's. I wrote down potentially buy protein powder from Health Dude. If I do and I like it, I will share about it here. And then about feeling romantically connected with my husband, I wrote down things like just sharing honestly how I'm feeling, sharing my feelings more often, allowing myself to be in my feminine around him, which has to do a lot with sharing my feelings, being in my body, going on dates together, and so on and so forth. But honestly, the biggest one was just speaking to him about it. I think that's a big part in relationships, just sharing how you feel, how you want to feel instead. And I feel like that already made all the shift. And I think this is also important, you know, there's a part of me that's like, oh, should I be sharing this? Like that there is moments where I want to feel more in love in my relationship, where I want to be loved even more. Should I not share this? Is this too vulnerable? But I actually think it's so important, and I hope it's going to give the people who listen to this at home or watch this at home the opportunity to be honest in their relationships as well. Because I think oftentimes we're like, oh, if something's bothering me in my relationship and I've admit that to myself, then I need to end the relationship, which is like way too far ahead. There's so many thousands of steps before if you are honest with yourself and connect with your body. And I think in order to have a long-term relationship, you have to have those clear conversations of just sharing where you're at and where you want to be instead. And there's literally 2 people that go on a path together, and you don't know if that path is going to go together for the rest of your life, or if you're going to grow apart and go in different ways. But in order, I think the highest chance that you have of staying on the same path for as long as possible is to just by communicating how you're feeling, how you want to feel instead, where you want to go together. And for us, for the past almost 6 years now, thankfully it's always been aligned. And I think a huge part of that is just communicating openly and connecting with each other. And then the next step is committing to a couple of those steps for the next 2 weeks, maybe even longer. If you want to do for 1 month, you can do 1 month. But again, don't overdo it, right? That's why I said just focus on a couple of ones. You just have to feel into it. Either you focus on multiple goals at once, which is probably not going to lead to you reaching them 10 out of 10, although I honestly never feel like anyone reaches their goals 10 out of 10 if it's like something that's not a number, just because we as humans are just have so much variety in ourselves and so many different emotions depending on the day, the hour, the part of the year. But I think getting to the 8 minimum is really the goal. And you have to see, maybe you want to just focus on one of those goals for the next month, and then on the next goal in the next month. That's the whole thing of habit stacking. I think in Atomic Habits, he speaks about that to like make your goals not too crazy, right? So if you say you want to work out, you're not working out at all, don't start with going to the gym every day. Start with going to the gym once a day and going on one walk every day, every other day of the week, for example. And then check in with yourself every week. Go and check with your goals. So, for example, I feel accomplished in my work. For me, when I did this a couple of weeks ago, I was at a 4. Now I feel like I'm at an 8. maybe even 9 some days, because I just made the changes that I needed to make for myself to feel accomplished. And like just looking how that develops and also seeing what it has to do with, right? Connecting to the last week that you had. What were the things that you did? What were the things as a couple? Did you go on dates together? Did you take time to just sit at a table and to have a coffee and look into each other's eyes? If you don't have children, this might sound completely unnecessary, but if you have children, that's a game changer. I also started something on here. I started a self-development calendar this year, and I basically write in there let me see where I have this here. I write down my triggers in red, I write down in blue my insights, I write down in gold my emotions, in green my releases, and in purple my shifts. And then I have a few other like short forms of upward, downward, repetition of lessons, and so on and so forth. I personally am really loving this. I write down when my period is, how my energy is according to this, how my creative energy is depending on where I am in my cycle. And for me, I love it. Like it just gives me so much accountability to my growth, to healing my inner child, and so on and so forth. And then at the end of the month, I have a little mini reflection of certain like journaling prompts that I go through to reflect on my month. And if you want to hear more details about how I do that exactly, and also the questions, let me know. I will keep on doing this throughout the year and then probably give an update on here how it's going. But I think it's just what my intention with it is to just kind of realize that it's normal to go through certain lessons again, but it's also important so growth happens in spirals, I think, and you just meet similar wounds from a different angle, from a different version of yourself. But also, in order to integrate lessons quicker, I do think it's really important to reflect on them again, right? It's kind of like when you learned things in school, when you learned vocabulary. Learning them once is probably not enough. You probably have to repeat them in 2 days and be like, okay, that was the translation of this word again. And even though you've learned it before, repeating it kind of lets it sink in deeper. And that's kind of my intention with this personal growth calendar. Of just being like, okay, what were the lessons that I learned this month? What were my major triggers? And just kind of giving myself the best possibility to integrating those things quicker rather than meeting the same triggers over and over again. All right, this was today's podcast. I haven't done a podcast with video in a really long time, but honestly, I kind of enjoyed it today. Maybe I'm going to start doing it more often. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can listen to my other podcast episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Some of them are going to be without video. All the ones that I did with video, I'm pretty sure are on YouTube. And I'm sending you so much love, and I'm going to put the questions below if you want to go through them again by yourself. And as always, if you know this is going to be my main priority for this year, and if you want to support my podcast, it's so helpful if you give me a 5-star review on Spotify, or if you follow my YouTube channel here. If you want to comment anything below that you're taking away from this, I would love to hear. And again, it just helps my channel to grow in wherever you're listening to this, which is my goal for this year. All right, I'm sending you so much love, and I'll speak to you again next Friday.